Cedar Street was the kind of place where time seemed to move slower than the rest of the world. The air was filled with the scent of blooming oak trees, and evenings melted into soft sunsets that painted the sky in shades of amber. It was on this very street that Mira and Adrian grew up, 2 houses apart, their lives quietly braided together by years of shared memories. Their mothers had met during a neighborhood picnic when both children were only toddlers. Adrian had been chasing a red ball across the grass, and Mira, still clumsy on her feet, had nearly toppled into him. Their mothers laughed, helped them up, and that tiny moment planted the first seed of a bond that would grow with every passing year. From then on, it became natural. Adrian and Mira were simply always together. They built forts out of old cardboard boxes, turning them into pirate ships or secret castles. In summer, they ran barefoot chasing fireflies, their laughter echoing into the warm night. Every morning, they waited side by side for the yellow school bus, swinging their backpacks against their legs. To anyone who saw them, they looked like siblings, the Cedar Street twins, neighbors fondly called them. But for Mira, even in childhood, there was something more. She didn't know how to name it then, but the way her heart skipped when Adrian smiled at her felt different from the way she felt with anyone else. Elementary school passed in a blur of crayons, playgrounds, and shared lunches. Adrian would trade her his extra cookie if she gave him half of her sandwich. They did homework together on Mira's porch, fighting over pencils and who got to solve the math problem first. During recess, they argued over who could swing higher, both laughing so hard their stomachs hurt. For Adrian, these were simple joys of friendship. For Mira, they were treasures, small golden pieces of memory she kept in her heart like secrets. As middle school arrived, everything began to shift in ways Mira couldn't ignore. Adrian was changing. He was growing taller, his voice starting to deepen, his laughter stronger, warmer. Mira noticed how other girls giggled when he passed by in the hallway, whispering about his messy hair and easy smile. Something inside her tightened when she saw it, a small spark of jealousy she tried to bury. She told herself it was silly after all. Adrian was her best friend. That's what everyone saw. That's what he saw. But Mira's heart was no longer listening to reason. She started noticing the smallest things about him. The way he drummed his fingers on his desk when he was bored, the way his eyes crinkled when he found something truly funny, the way he absent-mindedly hummed songs when they walked home, and whenever he leaned close to explain a homework problem, Mira felt her pulse race in a way that frightened her. But she kept her feelings hidden. She never wanted to risk breaking what they had. So, while Adrian remained carefree, Mira built a quiet world inside herself where her love lived, unspoken. By the time high school came, their paths had begun to stretch in different directions. Adrian joined the basketball team, spending long hours practicing. Mira threw herself into the school newspaper, writing articles, and learning how to tell stories with words. They had different schedules now, different groups of friends, and yet they always found each other. Adrian waited outside the journalism club just to walk her home, even if it meant he was late for practice. Mira saved him a seat in the cafeteria, cheering louder than anyone during his games. To outsiders, these were small, friendly gestures. To Mira, they were everything. Each moment fed her hope, even if she knew better than to expect more. Sometimes, late at night, she wrote about him in her journal. She would describe the way his hair caught the sunlight during basketball practice, or how he never let anyone eat lunch alone. She filled pages with words she could never say aloud. I love him. I've loved him for so long, but he doesn't see it. Maybe he never will. And still, she couldn't stop herself. The turning point came one rainy afternoon during their sophomore year. They were walking home under an old blue umbrella. Adrian had insisted on carrying. The rain poured heavily, soaking the pavement, and Mira slipped on the wet ground. Before she could fall, Adrian caught her by the waist, pulling her close. For a brief second, their eyes locked. Time seemed to stop. Mira felt the electricity of the moment, his hands steadying her, his closeness, the warmth of his breath mixing with the cool rain. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought he might hear it, but Adrian just laughed gently, helping her stand straight. Careful, clumsy, he teased, handing her the umbrella. To him, it was nothing more than a friendly moment. To Mira, it was everything she had ever wanted and everything she feared. That night, she cried quietly into her pillow, torn between joy and heartbreak. She had felt what it might be like if he saw her the way she saw him, and yet she knew he didn't. Still, Mira never stopped hoping. She told herself that maybe someday he would realize. Maybe someday he would look at her differently. Until then, she held her love close, a secret flame burning silently inside her heart. High school was supposed to be just another chapter in life, new classes, new faces, and the same old Cedar Street to come home to. But for me, everything quietly began to shift. By then, Adrian wasn't just the boy next door I had known since childhood. He was growing taller, his shoulders broader, his laugh deeper, and every time he looked at me, even casually, something inside me stirred that I couldn't explain. I didn't tell anyone, not even him. On the outside, I was still the same Mira, his best friend, his partner in silly adventures, the girl who'd save him a seat in the cafeteria or remind him about homework. But on the inside, my heart had started writing stories of its own. Stories where his hand would linger in mine a little longer, where his smile meant something more, where maybe, just maybe, he saw me differently too. Adrian had joined the basketball team that fall. Suddenly, He wasn't just Adrian from Cedar Street. He became Adrian, the shooting guard, the boy who could make three-pointers look effortless, the boy whose name people started chanting in the school gym. And me, I was the girl in the second row of the bleachers, clapping louder than anyone else, my chest tight with pride every time he scored. After practice, he'd sometimes wait for me outside the journalism club. He'd lean against the lockers, sweaty and tired but still grinning, and I'd walk out pretending it was no big deal that he was there. Inside, though, my heart would race, because I knew he could have gone home, could have hung out with his teammates, but he chose to wait for me. Those small choices kept me alive, feeding the hope I never dared to voice. But high school also brought distance. He made new friends, mostly from the team, and I joined the school newspaper, which meant long evenings editing articles and chasing down interviews. Sometimes days would pass where we barely talked beyond a casual hello, and yet the bond between us never snapped. It was stretched, yes, stretched, thin, like the string of a kite flying too high, but it was still there, holding on. One rainy afternoon, we walked home together. We shared his old blue umbrella, squeezed close so the rain wouldn't soak our clothes. At one corner, my foot slipped on the wet pavement, and before I could fall, Adrian grabbed me by the waist, steadying me. For a second, we froze, my hands pressed against his chest, his eyes locked onto mine. The rain fell around us like a curtain, and the world felt impossibly still. In that tiny, fleeting moment, I thought, this is it. This is when he realizes it too. But then he laughed, brushing it off. Careful, Mira. You'll make me drop you both into a puddle. I laughed too, pretending it was nothing, but my heart was burning, because to him it was just nothing, an accident, a joke, and to me it was everything. Nights became the hardest. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every glance, every word, every accidental brush of his hand. I wrote about him in the margins of my notebook, tiny lines of poetry I never showed anyone. My feelings grew like roots beneath the soil, hidden but unshakable, wrapping tighter around me every day. Senior year came faster than I expected. Everyone was talking about college applications, big dreams, the future. Adrian was applying to schools in California. I had my eyes set on New York. The thought of being thousands of miles apart scared me in ways I couldn't put into words. Because if I hadn't confessed in all these years, how could I do it when the countdown to goodbye had already begun? Sometimes I caught myself imagining what it would be like if I told him. Would he smile and say he felt the same? Or would he look at me with gentle pity, not wanting to hurt me, but not loving me back either? The risk terrified me more than the silence did. So I stayed quiet, I kept loving him silently, like a secret prayer whispered into the night sky. On the night of our graduation, there was a party in the gym. Lights sparkled across the room, music played, and everyone danced like the future was nothing but endless possibilities. Adrian looked perfect in his suit, laughing with friends, his tie slightly loose, his hair messily charming. I watched him from across the room, my heart aching with a longing I couldn't name out loud. At one point, I found him standing near the window, looking out into the night. For a moment, I almost walked up to him, almost let the words spill out, but my courage faltered. Instead, I stayed where I was, clutching the hem of my dress, telling myself that sometimes love isn't about being confessed. It's about being carried silently, faithfully, even if it breaks you a little each day. That night, I went home with a smile plastered on my face for the world to see, but inside, tears burned hot, because I knew Adrian was about to step into a new world, and I wasn't sure if in that world there would still be space for me. But despite it all, I promised myself one thing. Even if he never knew, even if he never felt the same, I would love him quietly for as long as my heart allowed. College was supposed to be a new beginning, new faces, new cities, new lives. For Adrian, it truly was. He left for California with his basketball scholarship, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder, eyes sparkling with ambition, and left for New York, carrying notebooks, a suitcase, and a heart that still beat quietly for him. The first few weeks were strange. Without him walking beside me, Cedar Street felt empty when I visited home. Without his laughter echoing down the phone line every evening, silence filled my dorm room like an unwelcome shadow. We texted, of course, casual updates, memes, the occasional late-night rant about assignments, but our conversations grew shorter, less frequent. Life was pulling us in different directions, and I was terrified that the invisible thread connecting us might finally snap. Yet, my heart didn't let go. Every time his name popped up on my phone, I felt the same thrill, the same warmth. He'd send me pictures from his games, crowds cheering his name. I'd send him snippets of my articles published in the college paper. We still shared our worlds, just in fragments now. One winter break, we both returned to Cedar Street. It felt like nothing had changed. The same old houses, the same frozen lawns, the same flickering street lamp outside my window. When I saw him again, my breath caught. He looked older somehow, more confident, but his smile was still the same. We walked for hours that night, just like we used to. The snow crunched beneath our boots, our breath forming small clouds in the icy air. We talked about college, professors, friends, but deep inside me, a storm raged. The words pressed against my lips. I love you. I've loved you for years. But once again, I swallowed them down, because as we walked, he told me about a girl he'd been seeing in California. His voice softened when he spoke about her. His eyes glimmered in a way I had always dreamed they would for me. And in that moment, something inside me broke. I smiled, nodding, pretending to be happy for him. I didn't let my voice crack, didn't let my eyes give me away. That night, when I returned to my room, I buried my face in my pillow and cried until sleep claimed me. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. It was grief. Grief for the future I had built silently in my heart, for the love that had never been spoken, for the possibility that was never meant to be. The years passed. Adrian thrived. He graduated, got a job, traveled. I carved my own path too, writing, chasing deadlines, building a career, and yet, through it all, a part of me always lingered on Cedar Street, where two kids once chased fireflies and built a secret fort in the woods. I never confessed, not once. I loved him in silence, carrying it like a sacred secret. And though it hurt sometimes, watching him move on, watching him belong to someone else, I also knew that my love, unspoken as it was, had shaped me. It had taught me patience, kindness, and the beauty of giving without expecting anything in return. One summer evening, years later, we found ourselves back in Cedar Street again. The old houses stood still, though the paint had faded. The fireflies still glowed in the woods, and Adrian, now grown, walked beside me once more. We sat on the porch steps of my house, watching the stars scatter across the sky. He talked about his life, his dreams, his journey. I listened, smiling, my heart heavy but full, because I knew this was who he was always meant to be, and I was grateful to have witnessed it all. When he left that night, he hugged me tightly and said, "No matter where life takes us, Mira, you'll always be my best friend." I hugged him back, whispering, "Always." And maybe that was enough, because sometimes love doesn't need to be declared. Sometimes it lives quietly in the spaces between words, in the memories we carry, in the prayers we whisper for someone else's happiness. I loved Adrian. I always would. But the world didn't need to know, and neither did he. My love wasn't about being chosen. It was about choosing to love even when it was one-sided, even when it hurt. And as I looked up at the stars that night, I realized something. Love, even unreturned, is never wasted. It shapes us, softens us, makes us human, and in that quiet, infinite way, Adrian would always be a part of me.